expressing their frustration.
Good morning, thanks for your time. I'm Mark Edwards from the Rock Lobster Industry Council, and this is Cathy Webb, who's the GM of Seafood Standards Council, so she has a lot to do with all seafood exports and the requirements that they must meet. We acknowledge the potential benefits to human health and the economy that may accrue from the use of gene technologies. However, we are concerned that risks to the current value basis of our wild-caught seafoods are carefully assessed. Commercial production of genetically modified marine species is already taking place in several countries, and there is a real prospect of interest in New Zealand. Environmental risks primarily arise from GMOs escaping from contained facilities and entering the marine environment, where they might compete with or interbreed with wild populations. New Zealand's seafood exporters currently receive general but difficult to quantify economic benefits from our GM-free status. A 2024 report by the NZIER found that New Zealand's primary sector exports could reduce by 10 to 20 billion annually if GMOs were released into the environment. The Bill's RIS acknowledges that damage to New Zealand's reputation and market positioning may threaten current price premiums associated and may also create market risks, either because of the costs associated with complex assurance processes for gene technology or as a result of trade barriers or prohibitions or clearance delays at the border. It's a critical issue, the border, for many of New Zealand's seafood products which are exported in a live or fresh form. China is the single biggest export market for New Zealand seafood at 730 million. Chinese consumers are highly sceptical about eating genetically modified food, and they are known to be very responsive to food safety issues and threats. Generally, New Zealand trades on its clean green reputation, which for lobsters, for example, is embodied in wild caught from remote and pristine environments and that sort of image. In our experience, trade and market access barriers may be imposed due to domestic market protections or consumer preferences or misinformation, including due to political influences. I mean, the trade is misused, is what I'm saying. Our submission outlines a number of examples, and you may have heard some from our PAL colleagues earlier this morning too, I think. We agree that New Zealand's legislative framework for gene technology needs to be updated. However, our key point is it's essential that the full range of benefits and risks of gene technology are assessed so that we can be confident that the decisions will not result in a net loss of economic value to New Zealand. And the omission of consideration of economic and trade-related risks is a major concern for us in terms of the bill. The sustained reduction in export value would have flow-on effects, including loss of quota value, including for Maori sealman quota, and regional job losses in processing and harvesting sectors, as well as the associated industries. It's suggested that providing information to inform an assessment of trade risks would add regulatory burden to applicants and the regulator, but the Has No Act currently enables trade-related issues to be considered when assessing applications, and we think that sort of area should remain. It's also common for regulators under other New Zealand statutes to be required to assess the economic costs and benefits of a proposal. For example, when assessing marine consent applications, the EPA must consider the effect of a proposal on existing interests and other activities in the area, as well as the economic benefit to New Zealand of allowing the application. In reality, much of the market and trade-related information is likely to be provided by submitters rather than the applicant. So we recommend that the expertise available to the regulator through the Technical Advisory Group should be expanded to include expertise on trade and economic matters, as well as those risks explicitly included in the bill. We note that the scope of the Maori Advisory Committee does not encompass impacts on the Maori commercial fishery settlement, even though the Crown has a duty to uphold the value of those settlements. The recommendations in our submission set out some solutions we've suggested that could address these issues through adjustments to the bill. We're happy to take any questions you have.
Right, we've got heaps of time. Excellent. So,
awesome. Thank you very much. Again, a very clear submission. Thank you. You say the negative impacts on trade may occur in the absence of any discernible environmental health impacts arising from gene technology. It's therefore not sufficient to rely on the bill's protections against risk to human health and environment as a proxy for addressing trade risk. Can you expand on your view that the complexity and the sophistication of markets mean that the cost of getting access to those markets, border compliance and so forth, how big of a risk and a concern is that for you around this liberalisation of gene tech?
I think it's a real risk for us, particularly in markets we trade with. We have a very diverse portfolio of markets, but markets like China, who have particularly sensitive to what they may perceive as food safety issues.
Yeah.
We know that they have banned products from other countries for various reasons, which may or may not be linked to food safety or to misinformation or market protection. So I think in this instance, it's a very real risk for us. And so we need to ensure that those risks are addressed as part of the assessment of any application that's involving a marine species.
Yeah. I guess I'd add to that, in respect of China, which you'll see in our submission, we've actually quoted some research which talks about their particular sensitivity to GMO issues. Some of our seafood exports are hugely reliant on China, simply because they are a very high-paying market. Lobsters, for example, 98% of our exported lobsters go to China, and we are criticised for that reliance. But the fact is, it is the highest-paying market, and no other market can pay the price or take the volume. So that reliance remains.
But just to very quickly add to that, it's because we've been built on a very good reputation for providing safe food, good quality from a clean environment.
So that natural food reputation is a big part of our brand respect and the reason we're prepared to
consume our product and perhaps pay a premium for it.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I talked to our group of exporters, lobster exporters of New Zealand, and they are very emphatic on the subject. You know, the clean, green, wild, pristine environment is absolutely critical to the way we market in China.
Well, that seems to be little understood. There seems to be very difficult to get actual tangible information on the value of that reputation when we have asked. But that seems to be widely perceived by people in the industry. That
Yes.
I encourage you to look
Yes,
at
we've had a few comments. So, yeah.
So
Yes.
we're talking about the clean, green environment, but lobster comes out of the sea. Would it be sufficient to have a clean, green, blue, whatever reputation just for our seafood, or is the fact that if we had GMO on the land, would that taint our seafood reputation as well? I'm asking for you won't know. I'm asking for speculation.
I guess that's why we're saying that we're not looking to prejudge an assessment or what processes could be put in place, or containment or other measures to try and protect that spread into the wild environment. But we're just saying that risk has to be part of a considered decision making about the New Zealand use of GMOs.
And my other one is that I think it's pretty clear that King Salmon have made it clear they don't intend to use GMO anytime soon, having been one of the pioneers of it and sort of shifting away from it in the opposite direction. Do you envisage your industry at any time being keen in the near future to be taking up genetic modification of species?
We don't know of any examples, but if you look overseas at some of the claimed benefits, I mean, New Zealand regulatory environment could allow that, and there's no barrier to entrants coming in and picking up and seeking to use that technology.
Just has to take into account the value of this wild fishery and the value of that reputation.
Yeah. Again, we're not looking to prohibit that investigation or what benefits there might be, but there is a proper process that takes into account those risks.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here today.
Well, that was a very, very, very complex and really great submission. What I'd like to say is, Steve mentioned GE salmon. He obviously might not have been able to say that the reason that King Salmon got out of it was because they did do GE salmon, and it was so deformed and so terrible that they had to crash it. In America, Aqua Bounty has also got a salmon, and it grows like 2 or 3 times the size. And somebody said it's like a human shark. It will eat its own young, and it will eat anything. It's so hungry, and it grows really, really big if it escapes. Well, actually, Aqua Bounty has now totally shut shop. They've closed all their facilities. The other thing too, in Japan, they have released a farmed fish, but unfortunately, they're freaking out because the latest earthquake has actually destroyed the facility. So it's all very well. What I would like for Steve or one of the people to have asked was, every submitter we've heard who supports the bill, they say, we support it. However, I'd like him to ask to say, if we do not implement your amendments, would you still support the bill? And I have a feeling that would put them in a slightly different place. And we might find that almost close to 100% of people would actually not support this bill.
Yeah, that's great comment, Claire. And absolutely, I don't actually ever like the idea of farming fish, because I know that they're really constrained. They can't do their natural behaviours. They eat yucky food that they wouldn't normally eat in the real sea. They can't migrate. They can't, do what fish do. They can't behave in a fish way. And I like the fact that Steve brought out that King Salmon basically didn't keep going down that track because it wasn't successful, and also the food safety issue of GE fish didn't come up. Now I think that's a huge one, and also the possibility of floods, earthquakes, human error. Human error is huge. Antibiotics, thanks Michael, in the chat. Human error is the source of so many things that go wrong, and people could easily just make a mistake, and then these fish could end up getting out. It's often they're in containment in actually in the sea. I think that some of them are actually in sea farms, you know, where they have these big nets and boundaries and everything. But what's to say that something can't go wrong there? Oh, I just think the whole thing of genetically engineering any sort of animal it's just grotesque. So no one will ever convince me any other way.
Well, they did find in that early days that the little salmon sprats, which are really, really small, actually could go through the nets.
Yeah, of course.
And they were quite worried about that. And we don't know what will happen.
No.
And this earthquake, what happens if those farmed fish? I mean, they say that they've also made coloured zebrafish, GE zebrafish, and people put them in their fish tanks. They've escaped, and nobody knows what's going to happen with theirs. You know, we just don't know what we're doing, and it's really, really sad how we're destroying nature, really. By the way, the mic's gone. So they are trying to reboot it, and it says that maybe a GMO hacked their mic. So I presume it's the next person's turn. So there's going to be a countdown. Is that right, Laura? Yeah.
Thanks so much.
So thank you for listening. Yeah, it was really, really great. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our